Introducing my audience right there. Everybody give them a wave. Thank you, guys. Okay. Do not let what you cannot do interfere with what you can. Today I'm going to be talking about a crisis in our Pacific Oceans with our kelp forests and the things that are obviously a little bit out of our own reach to do, and then some things that we actually can do to get in there and stop the main causes of that devastation. By the end of this, I hope you'll understand that our obstacles are that of money and motivation and not of a lack of knowledge. I'm talking from a perspective of someone who grew up on fishing boats, has talked to people who own businesses, right, as fishing charter captains and stuff like that. So they have that sort of experience that's non-scientific. And I've also gathered data from activists and from just observations, scientific reports on the subject, which are very significant. And I think the combination of perspectives is going to help actually guide our solutions that we need. So first we should understand why kelp is so important and what it really is, other than of course being a plant which essentially stores carbon and produces oxygen, which is very helpful. More than that, it is a forest. It's a bunch of trees under the water, and in there is a habitat for a whole lot of diverse organisms, from algae to invertebrates to big fish, small fish. Loads of biodiversity is happening in the kelp forests, and that's what makes them an important place to preserve and to protect. As well as, right, those fishing captains, they love to fish at the edges of those forests. They don't do any destruction to them with their fishing. They're only at the edges, and they're never really interacting actually with the kelp itself. They're just pulling fish from it. But that's a business that we as humans participate in, that we appreciate, and that we like. So the kelp is in a crisis. It is actually devastated. Studies show there's a 96% reduction in the California giant kelp forests, as cited by the Nature Conservancy, that's TNC. And that's not good. We're losing, again, that diversity. And diversity is good for the environment, just like competition is good for business. And in Australia, they're reporting a similar 95% loss. Tasmania is reported by their own Institute, Marine and Antarctic Science. And that devastation is very bad, again, that we're losing that diversity, which is not what you want. How are we losing it? Why is the kelp going away? It's a bit of a combination of temperature and some food chain dynamics. The ocean temperatures are warming. As cited by the Bodega Marine Labs in California, there's a warming trend in our waters where it's getting hotter, but it's also getting hotter faster. So you see that curve start to bend, which obviously just gets worse and worse as time goes on. Australia, their marine and atmosphere research shows very similar things going on in Tasmanian waters. It's getting warm, and it's getting warm quicker. That is no good. So that conditions of water is part of the issue, right? And why that water is no good if it's warm is because that is hampering the kelp's ability to grow. In cold water brings nutrients from the deep up to the kelp, and then it can grow. But in warm water, those nutrients never come up from the deep. They stay down there. The kelp doesn't get enough nutrients, it doesn't grow. It's not getting enough nutrients, but it's also getting too many pollutants. The kelp is close to the coast, and all of our urban cities, the runoff just gets dumped right into the water, most of the time not even going through some sort of natural filter like a lagoon, like an estuary or something like that. Sometimes it just goes straight basically through an aqueduct, and that is going to be terrible for the kelp. So it's not growing properly, it's not getting the nutrients, and then just our seasonal winter storms are enough to just tear up the kelp from the bottom, pull it out from the sandy bottom or from the rocks that it attaches itself to. So you end up with that massive loss. In addition to just the water conditions, there is the food chain conditions. The kelp is eaten by the urchin. This urchin is a huge problem. This urchin is devastating the kelp, both here, U.S. Pacific waters, and Australia. And the urchin has its own two predators, the California sheephead and sunflower sea star. Both of those eat the urchin, which eats the kelp. There's too many urchin, which is probably a result of not enough of the predators. Doctors Hamilton Cassell of UCSB, they were studying a sheephead decline, which happened in, I think, the 80s. The fish went through a huge decline in population, but was kind of fixed by the implementation of marine reserves, private areas where fishermen were not allowed to enter, never not allowed to kill the sheephead there. And the populations came back. They were healthier, better ratio of male to female, all of them bigger and healthier. But that was not enough to stop the urchins. So we still have a massive urchin population, and Joshua Smith, UCSC, was looking into why that is. And it turns out there's no change. There was not a boom in urchin population. It was the same, but it was actually just an urchin behavior change. Those warm waters that we're experiencing, there's an unusually warm year in which more urchin were spotted grazing out about than normal, which coincided with a disease that was affecting the sunflower starfish. So that was a lack of predators for the urchin, and then also this warm water that actually urged them to come out of their little crevices in the rocks and start grazing on the seabed and eventually find the kelp and then eat the kelp. So the urchin are on the loose, and there's fewer starfish to hone them in. There's still a decent amount of sheep's head, but there's this other idea that is pretty popular amongst the fishermen, the captains and stuff, that say that the sea lion and the boom and the return of the sea lion is actually bad for the kelp. 1975, according to the NOAA, there was 90,000 sea lions in California, which is not enough, just not a healthy population. They were suffering. But now, or by 2012, there's 300,000, which is way, way more. And fishermen often complain about the sea lion just eating the fish that you caught on the way up. Happens all the time. And you'll actually see when sea lions start being around an area where you're fishing, all the fish go away. You stop catching stuff because the fish get scared of the sea lion. Now, when a bunch of sea lions are swimming around in the kelp forests, they're scaring away the other predators for the urchin, like the sheep's head. The sheep's head swim around in the kelp, but then an abundance of sea lions is going to scare them off. Now they're not eating the kelp. So, just as humanity took a bit of an active step in protecting the sea lion, I believe we have a responsibility to take some proactivity and help the kelp forests themselves. We need to engineer a solution. I recommend fixing the predator imbalance via aquaculture, that is over farming. We already have experience doing this. Scripps in San Diego has farmed the white sea bass and helped its population become steady again over the last few decades. And they can do the same thing with sheep's head. They can get an abundance of sheep's head to put more pressure on the urchin. They can do the same thing also with the sea star. Put more pressure on the urchin. Do it that way. Get rid of the predator that's hurting the kelp. Another thing you could do is just physically make the kelp stronger. If you build artificial reef in front of the kelp, the strong winter waves that are coming in to destroy and uproot the kelp are going to get a little bit deflected. They're not going to be as strong coming through. Or if you make artificial hard substrate, that's just the stuff that the bottom of the kelp connects to and wraps itself around, then you have something sturdier for it to anchor itself to. It'll hold itself better in storms. And then you can make the water itself better just by being a little bit more environmentally conscious, right? Channel the city runoff through natural filtration systems like an estuary, a lagoon, something with grass, instead of just through a dirty, dry canal right directly into the ocean, which is just taking all the chemicals and runoff from the city and dumping it right into our little environment, which is no good. Now those are big lofty ideas. That's for companies and governments to take care of. But you and I, we have responsibility as anyone else. We should take action too. What you and I should do is contact public offices, let them know that you know about the issue, and that you expect them to do change, right? They work for you. and cast your vote to the right people, people who you think are actually going to make a change in that. They're going to do something about it. They're not just going to let it happen. They're not just going to sell out the territory to a company either. And if you have the ability, I mean, donate to the studies yourself. Or if you don't, and you just like getting maybe a little more hands-on with your help, you can volunteer in Monterey with the Giant Kelp Restoration Project. What they want from you is for you to just go down into the water in Monterey Bay, go diving, and pull out as many urchins as you can. They love you doing that stuff. So there are things we can do, despite all the things that we cannot do. Can't fight the temperature of the ocean, it's tough. But you can do all those little things. As humanity, we can engineer some solutions. And I hope you understand that those obstacles that are in our way are issues of money, motivation. It's not some knowledge that's locked away. It's not that we don't know what to do. It's just that we haven't done it. So let's go do it.